This is the No BS Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Shanks. In this show, we look behind the curtain of financial services to find answers to the biggest questions no one is asking. Join me as I welcome industry influencers, outside business leaders, and inspirational game changers for real, no BS conversations that will challenge you to think big. I want to motivate you to find purpose and fulfillment in your career. Now on to the show. Welcome to the No BS Podcast. I'm Ryan Shanks, your host. I am super pumped today to have as a guest and as a friend in the business, Justin Castelli. Justin is a husband. He's a father. He's a financial advisor and founder of RLS Wealth. He's chief of staff of OnRamp Invest. He's a co-founder of the AGC, and he recently launched a brand extension of RLS Wealth called Pursuit. Today, we're going to be talking about why some online communities work and others don't. Justin, how are you, brother?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here. I know we've been trying to line this up for a while, so excited to be here. I want to commend you on a great title of the podcast. Naming a podcast or blog or anything is hard, so you knocked this one out of the park. So I'm excited.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. So listen, I'm going to jump right in with you. First question I want to ask is, why did you become a financial advisor?
Oh man, luck would have it. And I say luck because I didn't go to college with any expectation of being a financial advisor. I didn't go to college even actually knowing financial advisors existed or knowing much about investing. It wasn't that we didn't talk about money growing up, but I didn't know this was an option. So I went to a small liberal arts school in Franklin, Indiana to play basketball. Game plan, go play basketball for 4 years. Maybe I could go play in Europe. That didn't happen. And law school was going to be the plan. And to be truthful, I don't know why law school. It's just what I thought I was going to do. And I met my wife going into our senior year. We started dating, and I realized that I didn't want to go to three more years of school because she was somebody special. But I realized I had no idea what I was going to do. There was no backup plan to law school. So she had to finish up down at IU and down in Bloomington, Indiana through the summer. I stayed with her. And then my dad just helped me network with different people in the business world in and around Indianapolis. And long story short, I met with a lot of advisors. I thought that would sound like it was a fun job, helping people, having some control over your schedule and making an impact. So I decided that's the path I wanted to go around. And I went around Indianapolis, dropping off paper resumes at the front office of these different offices, and landed at an insurance firm. And that set me off on the path that a lot of us advisors go on. So I stopped at an insurance-based firm, went to a bank, spent some time at a 403B company, came to the independent world through another firm in town, and then ultimately launched my own firm back in 2015.
That's phenomenal. And it's something you never really know, as long as you're willing to go on the journey, you never really know where the destination is. That's pretty cool. And it's also cool that, your wife was a pivotal point in your life to create whatever that trajectory was.
Yep.
So you played basketball in college. Mm-hmm. How did that prepare you to compete in our industry?
I think sports prepares us for a lot of things. And I think beyond college, back in high school and all the time I put in growing up, I think a lot of it is just work ethic, working hard. One of the things I realized, and this is true just in life in general, that there are a lot of lazy people in the world. And if you work hard, you set yourself to be in the top 10, 15% of anybody doing whatever it is that you do. So I think that the work ethic of going and spending hours in the gym on my own or working on my right hand and my left hand and all that hard work, that work ethic just carried over. So I think that's a big thing. I think leadership was something that also came natural to me on the court that carries over into being an advisor. Now I have a firm with two other employees now. I hired my dad as chief people officer. But I'm leading the firm, but I'm not leading from the sense of I have a lot of advisors, but I view myself in some ways as a leader to my clients, leading them on their journey, helping them navigate their plan. So that being comfortable to be in that position of saying, this is what we need to do and leading them is something that comes naturally that I think comes from the court as well. I think if I were a part of a bigger team, being a team player would be a part of it as well. But the biggest things is just the work ethic and the hard work, not being afraid to take shots. Going out and starting your own firm is a risk. I always wanted to try to hit the game-winning shot. I wasn't afraid to take the big shot, and I think that carries over as well. So little things. I bet tonight as I'm sitting down digesting the day, I'll think of some other things. But that's a really great question because I've never been asked before. I've never really put a lot of thought. So those are the things that first come to mind.
That's great. AGC, Advisor Growth Community. You're one of the co-founders for that online community for our industry. How did it come about?
Luck again, only because the way that, so Taylor Schulte co-founded it with me. Taylor's an advisor out in San Diego, and our great FinTwit community is how he and I got connected. And I don't remember why I reached out to him initially. Well, I remember why, but I don't remember what made me think of him. But I got the idea that I really wanted to write and encourage more advisors to think about their personal brands. And I was spending a lot of time researching that and talking about it. And I thought about doing a newsletter, but I wasn't confident that I could do a newsletter completely on my own. And I knew Taylor was a marketing whiz. And I know that his strengths on marketing are not mine and would complement my thought on branding. So if I could help an advisor think about their personal brand and Taylor could help them market it and leverage SEO, I thought it'd be a valuable newsletter. So I was thinking like a once a month Nick Murray type newsletter we would do together. So we had met at a conference in person after communicating on Twitter. And I reached out to him and said, "Hey, Taylor, I've got this idea. Would you want to do a newsletter?" And he fired back and said, "That sounds like a good idea, but what do you think about a community?" And as soon as he said community, I was like, yes, because at the same time, I was transforming my advisory business that I wanted to focus on working with entrepreneurs. I realized that the clients that I was really excited about taking on were entrepreneurial people. And I had a brand new business model that would merge personal planning, business planning, and then ultimately the top tier would bring marketing and branding to it as well. And I had a vision that I wanted to create a community of my entrepreneur clients. And I wanted that community to be so great that anybody in and around Indianapolis wanted access to those individuals to be around. And the only way you could be in that community was you had to be a client of my firm. And I wanted to have like my own building with kind of like a shared workplace and a podcast studio that my clients could use. And that would be encompassed in their plan. So I had this idea of community. And when Taylor said it, I was already thinking along those lines. And I realized, okay, I am going to build a community for entrepreneurs, but it's going to be a community for entrepreneurial financial advisors. So we had a quick exchange and he was in St. Louis for a couple of days. I drove over, we met for a day and just planned out the whole community and we kicked it off. And that was like in July. So it was July of 2019 that we met. August, we started to put it out there. September, we opened up with the goal of having 50 founding members. We were going to kick it off in November we're going to kick it off in September or October. September, we sold it out, our 50 advisors in 72 hours. So we had this almost of a problem of, we had way more demand than we ever imagined. What are we going to do for this first month so people don't feel like they wasted their money? And I guess I could step back. Like, how do we get that demand? When Taylor and I were planning, we thought, we've both spent a lot of time having one-on-one conversations with advisors because advisors would reach out and want to pick our brain. And I'll always have those conversations. So we just went back and it was amazing. Over like a year's time, I was able to put together a spreadsheet going back to my calendar. I had conversations with over 150 advisors and Taylor was around the same number. So we just put together an email and emailed all these advisors and said, hey, at some point over the last couple of years, we've had a conversation about something related to business. And Taylor and I are putting together this community. We thought you might be interested in it and we wanted to let you know. And that was it. And that was our first kind of foray into getting people into the community. And from there, like I said, we quickly got 50 members and October 1st, we kicked it off and it's been running ever since.
That's phenomenal. I look at people in general and you can oftentimes, and I don't want to overly simplify it, but you can put them in two different camps. There's the givers and there's the takers. Mm-hmm. You and Taylor are clearly givers in terms of, and I wonder like if that's sort of a DNA requirement to create a community like that, because there's so much work and hours that go into it and you're giving, right? And you're trying to really elevate other people. How many members do you guys have currently?
We are just under 170. And our goal is to get to 250 and kind of pause and just see where do we go from there. And all the decisions we make for the community, the community has input in. So 250 was a number we came up as a community to say, hey, let's pump the brakes and see, do we want to go bigger? Do we want to stay small? And where do we go from there? And ultimately, as founders, Taylor and I kind of make the final decision, but there hasn't been any decision made that hasn't run through the community and, they've had input into it. And an interesting thing, you mentioned being givers. I do think that's a part of Taylor and I's DNA. I would say that is a part of the DNA of all of the members inside the AGC. When we launched the community, we talked about having a private community for advisors who want to grow and get better personally and professionally together. And we really stressed, and we still stress, that the community is only going to be as valuable to you, the member, as much as you put into it. So if we have a bunch of takers who come to the community, it's not going to be very valuable because there's nothing to take. If you give more than you take, then this community becomes something special. And the cool thing about it is when Taylor and I were, giving away with those meetings with advisors over the coming years, and I'll tell advisors out there, like, when you reach out to an advisor and you're trying to pick their brain, a lot of times that advisor on the other end gets something out of that conversation. I remember reaching out to like Josh Brown when I was getting started with my firm and always wondering, like, how can I give back to him? How can I give to him? And over time, I realized through our conversations, he was getting just as much out of it as I was. And I can say that firsthand, that when I talk to other advisors, I get just as much out of it as they do, even though they came to me to ask me for some type of advice. But back to my original thought, when we were doing that, we didn't do that with the intent of one day we're going to launch a community. It's almost kind of like all these things hit together at the right time, and it was just meant to happen. And when we launched the community, it was kind of at the beginning of when communities were becoming really popular. Now, there were other communities out there, but over the last year, you hear about community a lot more today. And we kind of launched early on, and it was just the right time. And we just happened to have people who we knew that we had commonalities with them, that putting them all in the same spot with other people like that was a recipe for something pretty special.
It's incredible, the success you guys have had. How can financial advisors learn more about AGC?
The easiest way is just to go to advisorgc.com. Taylor, being more thoughtful on the marketing side, has put a lot of time and energy into making sure everything that you might want to know as an advisor can be found on that website. What to expect, what do we do, what's the cost, all those types of things. And the cool thing is the only requirement to our community is that you are a financial advisor. So you have to have a CRD number. It doesn't matter if you're fee only, hybrid, CFP, non-CFP. We have members in the UK, over in India, so up in Canada. So we're technically a global community, which is pretty cool. And I think the unifying factor to everybody in there is they have an abundant mindset. They're not viewing each other as competitors. We have a section inside the community that is a resource section that advisors are taking documents they've created and they use in their practice and sharing them willingly amongst their peers so we can go use it in our practice. Could be budgets, could be one-page financial plans. I mean, there's over 100 documents in there, and it's just voluntarily sharing those things in there, in addition to hopping on phone calls with each other. So it's pretty cool. I mean, I would say that there's an entrepreneurial mindset to everybody in there, but really the unifying theme is we all get better together. So let's work together and find an area where we're around like-minded people. So the website's the best place to go. And we're doing quarterly now Q&As with Taylor and I. So we have one coming up on the 27th. I don't know when this will get dropped, but January 27th, we have one. But also, reach out to us. And if you have a call, we'll hop on and talk about it as well.
That's great. I mean, I love what you guys have built. I just told an advisor on a call 2 days ago, because, I talk to advisors all the time. That's the business I'm in. And whenever I see that they're sort of struggling with different decisions, I'm like, you need a peer group. You need like a community to be able to share that with, because someone's probably gone through that exact experience and reach some conclusion you could learn from. What are your top 2 to 3 online communities for financial services, and why?
So naturally, AGC is going to be the top. I mean, I'm biased because I'm in it, but I also look at the advisors that are in there, and they're phenomenal human beings. And if you care about accolades, every year since we've been around, we've had 10% of the top, the 40 under 40 on Investment News. We've had like 15% of the Investopedia top 100, multiple Kitsis podcast guests. Like, there are phenomenal people, but also phenomenal advisors in the community. So I'm very biased from that standpoint. Outside of that, this is going to sound pretty bad. I'm honest. I don't pay attention to a lot of the other communities out there. I think that the community that lives on Twitter, when you get through some of the nonsense that's out there and you find good people, I think the FinTwit community is very good as well. One of the reasons we wanted to make the AGC paid was to cut some of that nonsense out that we find out on Twitter. Twitter's great, but it's hard to have a good conversation. And there's a lot of negativity out there. And if people have some skin in the game, then you're not going to have those bad actors that come in as well. So we did want to try to have a little bit of barrier to keep those actors out. But then we didn't want it to be too high to keep good folks out. I mean, I'm a member of XY Planning Network. So the XY Planning Network has a good community as well. our community is different, and maybe we'll get to what makes our community different from other ones, because I think there's something that we've done different than other communities that have made it successful. I just joined Planner DAO, which is put on by the guys over at Interaxis. And it's so being that I'm interested in the crypto area, a DAO is kind of a decentralized community. So while Taylor and I are the founders and there is an organization behind the AGC, the Planner DAO is owned by the advisors, and it's advisors who are interested in crypto. So I think that has the potential of being something cool. And I love the idea of turning the community 100% over to the community. Who knows if the AGC ever does that? Taylor and I have never talked about it, but I don't know. I think that community can be big organizations, or it can also be small communities. Before the AGC, I had a small group of advisors. I wouldn't call it a mastermind. It was more informal, but that was kind of my community. So personally, I haven't had a lot of luck with the FPA community. And I think that's regional. I think there's some great FPAs. The one here, it's not bad. There's great people in it, but it's not really meaningful to me. So I would encourage anybody looking for a community, look at those bigger organizations and ones like ours, but then also just look for like-minded people. And where are advisors hanging out that are talking about the things that you're talking about, and hang out there. It could be a Facebook page, could be on Twitter. And then when you spend time there, I think naturally little mini communities start to form from there.
What's missing from our industry, and how could an online community help? And this may be something that you guys are really accomplishing inside of AGC.
I think unity is missing within our profession, meaning that there's a lot of bickering amongst advisors on things that, are important, but really don't move our profession forward. Constant bickering about fees and how you charge and who charges too much. From what I can tell, clients aren't having that conversation. If a client is paying too much, or they think your fees are too high, they leave or they don't hire you. So clients are smart enough to figure out what's fair and what's not fair. Watching advisors bicker over that really annoys me. And I don't think that makes our profession look good. We already have a less than stellar reputation that's been earned over the years. That bad reputation that comes from Wall Street and on things that have happened in the past impacts advisors that are doing things the right way. I would rather see advisors come together and say, hey, there's no one right fee structure. There's no one right model, but there is a right way to treat people and put the clients first. And we collectively are going to do that. And if you come to me looking for an advisor that works hourly, that's not the way I do my business. That's okay. But I know an advisor who does. Let me make that introduction. I really think we lack unity in our profession. And part of it comes from the old mindset of you eat what you kill, and it's me versus you. You go to the wirehouse world, you're competing against the advisor next door to you. The beauty that I see coming with the RIA space is the RIA space is kind of more, we're in this together. I've got my niche. You see advisors focusing on a niche. If you're not a doctor or a dentist or a tattoo artist, I'm not the right advisor for you, but I know somebody who is. So I think that is just naturally improving. I don't want to say it's a generational thing, but I do think it is somewhat with the younger advisors that come up. They're more accepting, they're more focusing, they're not sales advisors. And I think as that more and more of those advisors come, we see more of it. I do think that the community is helping that. And we've had some efforts inside the AGC to try to improve outside of the AGC. We have a program called One Step Forward, because I hate diversity and inclusion, but the goal of the One Step Forward group, I don't hate diversity and inclusion, I hate the term. The goal of the One Step Forward program is to do those types of efforts. So we had a trial program with students at Michigan State. One of our members is a professor there. And we had students that are in the financial planning program from underrepresented communities mentor with some of our members. And it was multiple mentor-mentee relationships. And the goal was just to expose them to different areas of the profession, give them connections, and show them what a career in finance could be, and try to encourage them to stay on that path and come work in the profession. We have a book that we're getting ready to release as well, which would be pretty cool. That's 29 of the advisors wrote chapters sharing basically anonymous stories from being an advisor to show people what it's really like to work with an advisor. What can financial planning be? And I think it can educate the public about what financial advice really looks like. It could also allow the readers to see themselves in some of these stories and realize that they can reach their goals as well. So I think part of the AGC as we move forward will be to take the great things that we're doing and growing inside the community and help the profession outside the community look better or recruit good people and do more. So I don't know if I necessarily answered your question. I do think unity is important and missing. And I do think community can help that, whether it's the AGC alone or a bunch of communities. I think there's room for multiple communities, and there could be overlap as well.
I'll tell you something that would be really cool to do, and maybe if it's even something that we could do together, is to create a documentary on our profession that really highlights all the good that advisors do and the impact that they have in people's lives. Because to your point earlier, there's so much negative. Someone had a bad experience. There's an association that all the apples are bad. When in fact, there's amazing people like yourself that are out there tirelessly giving and working to help people. And I think it'd be good for our industry. It'd be good to continue to try to rebuild trust, in the marketplace. So that'll be something that we can chat about when we see each other on the road this year.
Yeah, that would be fun. And I think it's good for advisors to celebrate other advisors. It kind of accomplishes the same thing that documentary would do. Is just say, hey, like this advisor is doing a great job. Celebrate them. Like you don't have to always celebrate yourself and talk about how great you are. Highlight what other advisors are doing. Because here's the thing: if the perception becomes that advisors do good work and they put clients first and they help their clients, that reflects on everybody. So if we're highlighting each other and showing the good work and letting everybody know that there's these great advisors out there and connecting them, then that puts a positive experience in a client's bank, and they go tell their friends about, they've had a great experience with a financial advisor. Not all financial advisors are bad, and it just kind of snowballs into being good. So that's why I want our profession to have a kumbaya moment. We all come together and say, hey, we can have our differences on active versus passive and all those different things. And the beauty of it is we can only serve so many clients anyways. And different clients are going to want different types of advisors and styles and preferences. So let the right people find you. And then if the wrong people find you, send them to somebody who's good. Think about that. If you're an advisor, Ryan, I came to you and I said, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And you said, you know what? You're heading in the right direction, but unfortunately that's not, I'm not the right advisor for you. If you don't help them find a good advisor, they go back out, they got turned away. They think it's because they don't have enough money, whether that's the reason or not. And they have a sour taste in the mouth when they leave. But if you say, hey, I know a great advisor who works with clients that are, just like you, doctor, young professional, whatever it may be, let me make that introduction. I know they'll take good care of you. You pass them off to an advisor. So rather than letting them fend for themselves, you've connected them with somebody good. And now that advisor, they provide a good experience. That person has two great experiences with the advisor that wasn't right for them, and then the advisor that was good. And then they tell their friends, and it changes the perspective. So that's why I'm so big on personal branding. That's why I'm so big on creating content. Creating content is a way to give to the public with no expectations in return. You're educating the public, you're doing good work. And ultimately, I believe it will help your business grow. So it's two birds, one stone.
Yeah. It also validates niche focused advisors. Like get clear on who you want to work with, and then become familiar with other advisors in your community that work with other types of clients, and you cross-refer, to your point.
Yeah.
Why do online communities fail?
I can only speak from the experience that we've had in the AGC. What has made the AGC successful is we have hung our hat on, we are community first. The reason you join the AGC is not for the guest speakers. We've had Ryan multiple times. He's come in and been a great resource for members. It's not for the guest speakers. It's not for the discounts that we might be able to get to website design and SEO. You're coming to be around the people. And when I look at other communities out there that haven't had the success, and success is not numbers. There are communities that have more members, but I don't view them as successful as the AGC because of what goes on in the AGC. I think a lot of other communities end up being a byproduct. You join, you subscribe to something because they provide a tech stack or something that you need, and enough people need that. Now there's a group of people, and now magically we have a community. Well, there's nothing unifying those individuals except the tech stack, where what's unifying members of the AGC is a growth mindset, a desire to grow and get better personally and professionally, a desire to make our profession better, and a desire to be around people who are like-minded. Like those are qualities, those are characteristics. I think that's what makes a community strong. When it is, I don't think you can force a community either. I have a failed community. I'll write about it one day. When I was focusing on trying to grow RLS Wealth, I wanted to create a community just like the AGC on Circle, the platform we use. And I wanted it to be a resource that would be everything that's not financial for my clients. So I set up Circle, had everything out there. And I really was building that community for my future clients, because I think my existing clients would have liked it, but it wouldn't have been something they would have sought. But the people that I wanted to grow with would have appreciated it and would have built. Well, when I stopped trying to grow my community or trying to grow RLS Wealth, I realized that community doesn't fit my clients. I can't force them into it. So it was a bit of a failure. So I don't think you can force the community. What I think is you need to have a unifying set of values and interests and make that the center, and let people who have those same values and interests come around. Going back to Kumbaya and campfire, make that the campfire and let those people who want to be around that warmth come in and get together, and then give your members the opportunity to get together, interact. I think one of the things that I'm really proud about with the AGC is it's continued to grow and thrive over a 2-year period where we haven't been able to get together in person. When we launched the AGC, the wild thing is when we launched the AGC, before our first meeting, we had AGC meetups at Wealth, FinCon, and XY Planning Network. We had community members already getting together in small groups in person before we had our first meeting. And I think that as we get back to being able to do that, that's going to make the community thrive even more, because it's one thing to Zoom and chat and text and chat, but then to get together with these people in person, those bonds get even stronger. I think the community gets even stronger. I'll say one area that if you want to study communities that I think we can learn a lot from is the NFT space. You look at like Bored Apes and CryptoPunks, and people don't understand why would you pay so much for those. And there's some human psychology going on in that, but those also have communities behind them. There are people who are unifying behind these JPEGs that have these value, that there's a community behind it. And that's what makes those things continue to grow in value. People want to be a part of that community, whatever that community means. I can't tell you the values of the Bored Ape community, but I can tell you it's really, really powerful. And it's really, really valuable just by how much they're selling for. And people are still spending money to get into that. So I would look at what's going on in the crypto space, specifically the NFTs, and look at how all these projects launch and there's a community behind them. And the projects that are the strongest and most valuable are the ones that have the strongest and most valuable community behind it. Every NFT project has a Discord, which is just like the Circle platform. It's a place for your community to go and interact with each other. So I think that the NFT space can teach us a lot about building good communities.
Is there a non-industry online community that impresses you most?
I can't think of one off the top of my head, which means I spend way too much time in our industry. I need to get outside of it and see what I'm missing out there. I mean, I'm sure there's some great like sports communities, and I mean, community doesn't necessarily have to have a online web presence. Like you can look at like fans of sporting events and look at the tailgates that go on and the people who park in the same spot. Like those have become mini communities. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I would throw like the NFT projects as industry. So I throw those out. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
So you have indicated in the past that if you were not a financial advisor, that you would want to be a music producer.
Yep.
If you were to become a music producer, who would you hustle to sign first?
To sign first. You know what? I don't think I want to manage the artist. I want to produce their beats. So I would love to have Kendrick Lamar. I would love to have J. Cole want to use my beats. Nas is another artist that I love. He's older art, and he's doing some cool stuff in the crypto space. Like I think there's some cool community things that'll go there, but I would say Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Nas. And since we're talking about like my hero when it comes to producing music is our friend Niall Bear. I don't know if you remember when he was doing his morning person little stint, but he did like 60 days in a row of producing music. And I love his beats. My All About Your Benjamins, my Pursuit, and another video series I do, all of the intro music are Niall's beats. So I've been trying to get him to teach me how to do it. He's told me a couple of things. It's really, really hard. So I've got my guru when it comes to it, if I could ever get him to find the time to teach me.
That's awesome. Well, I will share something that you and I have in common. I too, if I weren't in this business, and eventually maybe I won't, you want to scratch the itch. I would love to be in the music business, but I'd like to be on the talent acquisition side, similar to what I do in the financial advisory world, but trying to identify just that incredible talent that's at the local pub that hasn't been discovered. But also I'd like to create an environment to where they own, it's like an NFT. There's a community they own that themselves versus like you go and you sell it. And I got buddies that have sold out and signed labels, and when it's all said and done, they get 10 cents for every dollar. And it's all them.
I'll take us on a small tangent. I promise I'll be quick so we don't run long. But going back to Nas tonight, so the 20th, he is selling 50% of future royalties on 2 of his songs via smart contracts, so via crypto. And one of them is one of my favorite songs off of his second most recent album. The song is Rare, but he's selling, I think it's 1,100 contracts, and they have different tiers. So the baseline tier I think is $100, and you get a like 0.001 of future 50% of the royalties going forward. The second tier is like $500. You get some swag and a little bit higher percentage. And there's 10 contracts that are $10,000. You get 2 VIP tickets to a concert. You get an hour Zoom with Hit Boy, who's the producer of the album, and some swag. And then you get the highest revenue share out of it. And I just think that's really cool. But that is a community building thing amongst Nas fans. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna make my $100 or $500 investment back over time owning the song. But I'm a Nas fan. I love his music. I happen to love that one song, and now I can get a small pennies every once in a while from listening to his song every day. Like, that's pretty cool, and that pulls his fans together. You think about a starting artist, like rather than having to take money from the record label, they could do something similar with their fan base, and now they can get some money up front by selling some revenue of their future earnings. But then also now their fans have an incentive to help them succeed, because if that artist blows up, then that sample song they own is now more valuable. There's a lot of cool things that have nothing to do with community, but you talked about.
No, it's cool. No, I wanted to end kind of on that note, because, look, there's always what we do now, but we started off this podcast and talking about sort of the journey. Like for you, basketball, you thought you were going to maybe go to law school, you met your wife, and there's the pivots and the things that go on in life. And that's part of the journey. So, well, listen, man, I can't thank you enough for joining me. It's been a real pleasure peeling some of this back with you. And I think, we'll share as we get this out and promote it, the AGC contact information, and try to do our part to continue to support what you guys are doing there.
Well, I appreciate that, obviously. And Taylor does as well. I'll speak for him. And also, I forgot, I had to shout out, Mallory is our community manager. This is something I forgot about early on. So we hired last year somebody to actually help us run the community. I think that's an area people fall as well, as they don't have good organization. And Mallory is an absolute, I don't love the word, but she's an absolute rock star. She is awesome. The community loves her. She's the first person you meet. She does everything for us. So I would be remiss, and I apologize, Mal, for just now mentioning you. You should have been one of the first people I mentioned on why we're successful, because so much of our recent success is from Mallory's hard work. So Mallory, please forgive me for waiting till the end, but we all thank you for that. And also, I thank you for the opportunity to talk about something I've never had the opportunity to talk about before, because I do think community building is something that is unique. I think there's an opportunity for advisors to do what I was trying to do. I think that, especially niche firms, they could have a community component for their clients. Think about it. If you have a community environment that has nothing to do with finance, that's helping your clients network within their profession, like what kind of extra value add is that? And if the community becomes really, really strong, then that relationship is even stickier. Hopefully you don't have to worry about sticky relationships because you do a good job, but you got this great community that complements the planning that you do. That's a pretty big value add. And maybe all you need to do is provide the environment and maybe a little bit of conversation starter and enrichment for that community to take off on its own. The final thing I'll say, the best communities are community led, meaning it's not Taylor and I's show running the AGC. We just happen to be the two guys that came up with the idea, but the community thrives because the community has ownership in what they're doing. Community members lead sessions. They recommend guests. They're organizing challenge groups within the community. Those are all community driven. And if you're building a community, that gives your members a sense of ownership and ties them deeper into the community. And I think if you allow that to genuinely happen, it's a good thing. I think if you try to put the responsibility on your community to make your community grow, that's a bad thing. But encourage your community members to take ownership and do things they want to do within it to make it more valuable for them. So as I continue to ramble, more ideas come. So, but anyways, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Don't miss any of the No BS podcast with Ryan Shanks. Follow the show to know when the latest episode is ready. And of course, be sure to share with colleagues and friends. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of FA Match. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.